Welcome to another episode of my podcast. That's fine with me. Today we're going to be talking about Sex and the City and how it, let's say, influenced our lives and society in general. I am 29. I will turn 30 this year. I was born in 1994. In 1997 was released a book from Candace Bushnell. Her pen name was Carrie Bradshaw, so you can see the resemblance. And I believe a lot of influencers, a lot of people that we see on social media, not only social media, they were influenced by this series, Sex and the City. Not even the book. I don't really think it was that successful. This book would have been that successful if it wasn't for series, the HBO, I'd say. But I will not pretend that I hate Sex and the City. I love Sex and the City for entertaining purposes. I do. And I feel like this is so cool. It's so weird. It's amazing. And I actually purchased a book from Candace Bushnell so many years ago and I read it. And I can't say this is my favorite book. I can't say I would reread, I guess, this book. It's boring. And I know that a lot of people were saying the same thing. The reviews were pretty much similar, that it was quite boring book and no one could understand how producers, let's say, and writers could create something decent and that culture phenomenon out of this really boring book. But I guess they liked the idea that some young girl, she came from nowhere, let's say, practically to New York, and of course she tried to be an actress. Obviously, and then she tried to be a model, but no one really liked her as an actress, as a model, and she had to take a couple of manual jobs, was an assistant in a boutique, and yeah, that how her career as a writer started. She had to do something and she was observing some patterns, let's say, when she was dating guys. She wasn't successful. She was 33 and she realized that she was still renting an apartment with her friends and she wasn't married. She didn't really want to get married, I guess so. And she was partying a lot, and these three girls from the book, and basically from the columns that were published later on in one book, they were the inspiration, as from the film, for her stories. The only difference between the series and between the book is girls were the main characters. Her friends were the main characters. And she had, in the book, Charlotte, she was from England and she was addicted to sex. Not Samantha, but Charlotte in the book. Then she had Miranda, not Miranda. If I'm mistaken, there were no Miranda, Samantha and someone else. And both of them were producers or something like this. So they were not lawyers and PR agents, nothing like this. But they were quite, I guess, successful as well. And sometimes it was true. It was kind of mentioned in series where Carrie, when she came to New York, she had no money for food, and sometimes she would just purchase Vogue because it fed her more. And I'd say that Candace Bushnell had the same issue. Sometimes she had only half of grapefruit, and then she would start writing again, and sometimes she was kicked out of her apartments because she couldn't pay for them, and then she would live in her friends' apartments. And yeah, but she was crazy about brands and designer bags. It's pretty much similar characters, so you can see Carrie Bradshaw is almost identical to Candace Bushnell, and it's pretty much similar. She did actually have occasional sex. She did have occasional, let's say, flirting, things. And by the way, everything I'm saying in my podcast is strictly my opinion. I am not insisting this was the truth. It's some information that I read from, different sources and articles. I hope it's pretty much clear. Okay. And in 1997 was released the book made of her columns, the same way as in the series. And she won, I don't remember what time was that, but she met her future sort of lover, Mr. Big, as she called him in the series, one of the parties. And at first she was actually invited to certain parties when she was 33 and was writing a column, but it wasn't a super successful column back then. So she was invited as a great person to talk to. And she really was sort of had a great sense of humor. People really liked her. And when her column and her book started growing and had become a hit, they started inviting her to the parties as a respectful person, someone who achieved something in life. And there she found Ron. I don't know his surname. I don't remember. Quite honestly, I don't care. And Ron was somehow involved with Vogue, if he was an editor-in-chief or someone who was dealing with Vogue. I don't remember, but he was a respectful man. He had a lot of money. He was invited to so many parties. And even the president of the company, Ferrari, if I'm not mistaken, he would literally fly him from one place to another to check out his Ferrari new model and new edition. And let's say this Ron is a great resemblance to Mr. Big from the series, where he liked models. He didn't really care about women. He didn't really love. And if I'm not mistaken, he was married. He didn't want to introduce Carrie or Candace to his mother. He was sort of ashamed of her. And mainly we can see that it's just like the same person. Someone says Donald Trump was probably Mr. Big, but just probably people are fantasizing. Mainly it was Ron. And of course, later on, Candace, she started dating some millionaire who was 43, if I'm not mistaken. Then he broke up with her because he didn't really want to get married. And in a couple of years, she got married. She kind of started going out with her friends more and more. And she went to a concert or some ballet concert, let's say. And she found her future husband. He was a ballet dancer, and then he cheated on her years later, and then she just moved to some farm or something like this. Right now she's 63. I will tell you that Candace Bushnell is so, like, let's say very I'd say Samantha or Kim Cattrall is really like a sister to Candace Bushnell, let's say. And I feel like Samantha is the best character out of all of them. But to be clear, Sarah Jessica Parker is nothing like Candace Bushnell. Something like this. And okay, let's talk right now. What was happening about Sex and the City that caused this shift in dynamic among us, I guess millennials, who grew up on this series? I mean, I was born in 1994, but I guess in early 2000s, I was watching the series as I was like 15, maybe 15, younger or a little bit like later. And then I watched the whole series maybe in 2018. And then since then, I was rewatching them from time to time. And I really loved the idea behind Sex and the City, that Carrie, she has beautiful clothes, design bags, shoes, and she was just running around the city. She was a freelancer. You know, just you can see a lot of things that are happening right now in our world, that a lot of influencers, a lot of people that grew up in social media, we're not writers, most of us, we're just influencers, then brand clothes, designer bags and shoes, especially TikTok. You can see this a lot with this influencer. They're showing that you have to own this bag and that bag. And people are spending their, let's say, money on the shoes and bags, and they don't really care how much money they have in their saving account. And 70% of Americans, let's say, due to certain sources, they have less than $500 in their saving account that they cannot afford some emergency situations that could happen with them if it happened. So that's why I believe it's really important to keep in mind the e-girl trend, the trend with designer bags and shoes. If you can't afford them, if your salary is $5,000 or maybe even $10,000, it's just identically, like in an ideal world, you have $5,000 or $10,000, you have to pay for rent, you have to pay for your clothes, and then for food, and if you have a car, then gas, all of it. And then on top of this, people want to have the best of the best. And again, shoes, expensive shoes. Most of the shoes, unfortunately, they are not even shoes, but all of the stuff, luxury brand stuff, most of them are not made of leather or other quality products. It's made of poor quality materials that are gonna just fall apart in a year probably, but you spend maybe more than half of your salary for that. And Candace had the same issue and the same problem. She was willing to spend as much money as it takes to buy her Manolo Blahnik, shoes, instead of paying for rent, instead of paying for food. She didn't cook. By the way, I don't know, I assume that she did not cook real Candace Bushnell and Carrie Bradshaw herself as well. You can see the similarities, especially with the takeouts. A lot of Americans, they love takeouts. In the economy that is happening right now, a lot of people cannot afford takeouts anymore, or they can buy takeouts, but it's going to take more than half of their, let's say, spendings and earnings, because they did not, they don't really want to cook. And try to imagine a single takeout can cost you maybe like $20 to $30 in a good world. And if you don't cook, then you would need to spend this every single day. How much products are you going to buy? I don't know, for $100 that you're going to be spending within like 5 or maybe 6 days. If you're buying only one takeout a day. And if the cost of this takeout is only $20. So like, just try to compare this. And she had the same Asian problem. In some sources, in some articles, when Sex and the City was filmed, they were kind of like calculating her outfits, and Carrie or Sarah Jessica Parker, she was wearing more than 150 outfits or maybe 200 outfits in a season. So you can understand that it's enormous amount of clothes, and you can't even, she had a tiny closet. That's why she would definitely have to get rid of all of the stuff, because she wouldn't keep them anywhere but her apartment. And if you start, doing some calculations, how she could afford the style, even if she could, let's say if she could live with $5,000 per month, look at the outfits, 150 plus outfits, then her shoes that would cost $400 or $500 per one pair of shoes. Then she was always going out with her friends, and we were talking about Manhattan. That is super expensive food and super expensive restaurants, and she would go every single day or order some takeouts. And then do not forget about rent that she was paying, and she kind of had like this fixed payment for her apartment, $700 something. But if we start, calculating all of it, it's more than $5,000 per month. So where did she get all of this money? She didn't. Of course, it's for entertaining purposes only. Sex and the City is for that. Another great example, let's say Jaclyn Hill, she in one of her lives, if I'm mistaken, or some stories, she was talking about brands, how she loved different luxury brands, and she would purchase them no matter what. Consumerism, let's say. And she purchased some shoes or sneakers to her husband, Jordan, and he returned them because he doesn't really need expensive luxury shoes. He just doesn't need that. And she was like, oh, but I do. I care about designer brands. And you can see the similarities where she's watching Sex and the City almost like every weekend or every day. I don't know how often she does that. She has money. That is the only difference between Carrie Bradshaw and Jaclyn Hill, I guess. And a lot of people, they are doing pretty much the same thing. They're watching that, oh, someone is purchasing designer bags, even if they don't have money. So I can do the same thing. I wouldn't be the same way as Carrie. Like influencer that is running around the apartment, changing men clothes, and all of it has led, I guess, to a consumerism that we have right now. We have a lot of influencers, they're like shoving this products into your face and saying like all the links are in the description box, which is okay. I mean, understand this is the way they earn money to provide for their families, but most of them are just selling you everything, and people are purchasing this just because it's cute. They're not thinking that, why do they need, 100 pairs of shoes? Why do they need 100 pairs of boots? I guess it's just cute. Let's have options. And a lot of influencers, they're showing their closets, rooms of sneakers and boots and coats. I understand, it's so cool. I love stuff as well. I love dressing up. I love different outfits. But how practical is this? How many times do you actually get rid of your stuff? And believe it or not, my cousin is a huge fan of Sex and the City. And I'm a huge fan of the Sex and the City. But let me tell you, she has so much stuff, and she's just purchasing this because of a cute collar. I asked her a couple of, it's not related, Sex and the City, for my cousin, but I'm just saying. And she came over and she showed me her new sneakers. And I was like, oh, cute sneakers. And she said, yeah. And I found a different color, the same pair of sneakers, so I purchased them. I said, why? She said, because it's cute. It's just cute. That is a problem of my generation. People are not ready to save their money on something that is really important. They consume the products and then they just throw this away. My cousin, they moved from one apartment to another. They purchased an apartment. Actually, they have a mortgage right now. And she gave away five huge bags with clothes and shoes and boots and accessories. And she brought 2 of these bags to me. 2 of these, or 2 or 3 bags, she just threw away, and 1 or 2 bags to her sister. And quite honestly, that wasn't it. She threw away a lot of the stuff when they were moving, and when they moved in, she still had a lot of stuff to clear out. I was like, oh my God, why do you need that much stuff? It's just, and she always has the situation that she is in debts. Okay. She thinks, oh, it's cute, I'm just going to purchase that. And she doesn't care how it's going to influence her budget. Oh, I want to go to a trip, I'm going to just purchase these tickets. And she doesn't think how much it's going to influence her budget for 3 or 4 months ahead. That is a true problem. And Carrie had the same issue and the same problem. And a lot of us, I mean, we're talking about someone who's under 20 or maybe a little bit over 30. We were watching growing up and thinking that is so cool. That is so cool to have these brands. It's so cool to slip around with guys. It's so cool to rent an apartment that is going to be fixed and to live alone and do not cook and just take takeouts and have friends to talk about man, and then to go and spend all of this money every single day to some weird restaurants, great restaurants, I don't know, and partying and clubbing. And you have this dream of a rich guy that you cannot reach, a rich guy that you can't reach. Yeah, it's a problem that I see a lot among influencers. I see a lot among my friends. So that is an issue in my opinion. That's how this cultural phenomena like Sex and the City influenced us and has a problem for our generation. Of course, let's say my sister, she's 16, she's about to turn 16. She did not watch Sex and the City. It wasn't that cool for her. But she's a completely different person. It's completely different. And I believe probably someone who were born in 2008 when Sex and the City wasn't that much of a big deal, they are going to be absolutely different. I don't know, is it true or not? But I know that for us who grew up with Sex and the City, we're different. And of course, I am going to be talking about Mr. Big and why he didn't want to get married her. In Candace Bushnell, let's say, book and columns, the Ron from Vogue, he did not marry her. He did not. He actually got married to some Olympic champion woman, and he called Candace one day and asked her to grab her stuff from his, I don't know, Hampton's house or some random house. And she came over, grabbed her stuff, and left. And that happened, the same thing happened with Natasha and Mr. Big, and quite honestly, in real life, I get it. It's not going to be a happy end at all. And I don't really think she had anyone like Aiden. And I feel like if she had anyone like Aiden, she would definitely get married. But first of all, Ron did not like the fact that she was publishing their private life to everyone. And he made some certain comment, if I'm mistaken, in real life that he didn't want his mother to see everything like this, to see her stuff in his apartment. And he didn't want to introduce her because she was publishing their sex life in her columns. And she was actually sexually active, let's say, as well. And he was afraid his mom is going to react. So this is really important step right here. You could see from like Mr. Big, one day he didn't really want to introduce Carrie to his mom. The same happened with Candace. And that was a big deal for her. But let's see how it's going. He was rich. Mr. Big was rich, okay? And he has his first marriage with the editor-in-chief. I'm talking about series right now, not real life. Editor-in-chief. And then he got married to Natasha. And you can see that a lot of his women, they were well respected, I guess. Not respected, but they didn't go to some nightclubs, not that often. They didn't slip around with guys. And I believe Mr. Big felt comfortable with Carrie, and he really liked her sense of humor. She was a great party girl, and she was a great person to have sex and laugh. But is it a marriage material? I don't really think so. With it's the same issue with probably Cinderella syndrome, where like girls are looking for a rich guy, but they came from some village or they came from nowhere. And these guys, they would think of them as someone who are not, let's say, worth this marriage. I'm not saying it's good. Those are pricks and those are toxic guys that they want to have fun with those girls, but they don't really want to get married. I'm not saying it's good, but it's clear that this guy would never marry someone like her because she was a party girl and she was slipping around, and he was so afraid of his mom to introduce her and to say that, Mom, I'm slipping and I'm literally dating someone who is a slut. Practically, we can call it this way because she was slipping around so much with so many different guys that, of course, he was afraid his mom wouldn't approve. Obviously. That's why, I don't know, maybe in series we don't really know this information, but maybe his mom died and that's why he got married to Carrie, because he didn't really care anymore about his mom's opinion. But as well as she had no money for shoes, and her column, as from the series, was every single time printed with ads about penises or something like this. And she mentioned this to Charlotte in one of the series, that Natasha is Natasha. She's so clever. She has good education and something like this. And I am getting published in front of ad to penises. So you can see the diversity between these two girls. It's so cool to have fun with her, but it's not cool to marry her. I'm going to fuck her when I'm going to sleep with her when I'm gonna cheat, I guess, with her, and I'm gonna be on public with my wife with education and something like this. And yeah, right now, I would say it's going to be pretty much similar. It's the same thing with 50 Shades of Grey. Quite honestly, he wanted to abuse her. He wanted to, like, beat her, and he needed to get out of, get this frustration out. And out of nowhere, she's like, oh, I'm going to leave you if you will carry on with the beating part and with, like, this sadistic things. And he was like, no, I'm so afraid to lose you. It's the same thing. No one, okay, it's toxic relationship. No one is going to give up his habits, especially if he's a billionaire. He's a billionaire. Oh my God. I'm like, I can't believe people would believe in that. And it's another problem with girls. Girls see that, oh, this billionaire, he fell in love with this plain girl, and she would actually tell him what to do and how to do. So I can do the same thing. I don't really think so. I'm pretty much sure that 90%, maybe even 99% of the time, you will submit in this relationship. If he's a billionaire, you are going to submit. And it doesn't really matter if he sees his dead mother in you and he want to punish his mother, he will punish you as well. It doesn't really matter if you are that, I don't know, pretty good and whatever. He needs to satisfy his, let's say, desires. And I don't really believe in this bullshit about, just giving up his behavior and giving up his sadistic, let's say, desires for some random woman. I don't believe it. No, you can't convince me. And a lot of people can compare all of the stories like 50 Shades of Grey and Sex and the City to Cinderella. I feel like it's really close to Cinderella, but it's not at the same time. Cinderella wasn't just a servant. She had a title. Her dad was a businessman or someone who was like selling something. So he wasn't just from a servant family. He had a house. He got married. All of them were like wearing those beautiful gowns. That's why Cinderella, she was abused and she was treated like shit, but she was with a title. That's why when she got married, she still wasn't a servant. She had a title. I don't even know, can we compare Cinderella to these stories? Because both of the protagonists, like 50 Shades of Grey, who like Anna and Carrie, both of them were not with titles. They were like just servants. Not servants, just sort of servants with no title. And they got this princess, and they got this man, Mr. Big, and a billionaire. Okay, so these two, and they followed their, let's say, mind. They really love them. I don't really think that's a thing. No, one thing if you have a title and you just was treated badly, but another thing when I'm gonna marry this guy being just a poor servant because he's gonna fall in love with me. Probably he's gonna have sex with you first, and then get married to someone like Natasha. It's just my personal opinion. Not my opinion. It's mainly like what psychologists are saying most of the time. These type of men, they're ashamed to get married to some women. Of course, there are going to be exceptions. But most of the time, they're going to find someone who's the same level. But okay, and another problem started, I guess, with Devil Wears Prada. This film was released, I guess, in 2006. This was the continuation of Sex and the City and those beautiful designs that were shown in the film. And I was influenced by Devil Wears Prada. Quite honestly, I thought she was Anna as well, if I'm mistaken, but I'm not sure. And she was an assistant. You remember, like Devil Wears Prada, she was an assistant. She hated her job, and then she quit in a year, and she found a great job, the one that she really wanted. And I was always like, why did she quit this great job with Miranda Priestly? It's fashion. It's so cool. Was she crazy? And I had a dream, but I really wanted to work as an assistant because I had this like pink glasses on top of my head that everything is so cool and great if you're an assistant, especially for Miranda Priestly. And then, be afraid of your wishes. I got my job as an assistant. In 3 months, I got my nervous breakdown. That's why, no, thank you. And I understand as a grown-up how toxic this film, not even film, how toxic this Miranda Priestly was to her assistants, because she would put them in situations where you can do something, you can perform this job. And she didn't really care if you had a chance to perform these duties or if you didn't. That's why I realize how important it is to address certain issues. These films and this series, they're just for entertainment purposes only, guys. To see this beautiful clothes, to, chat with your friends, discuss this, weird guys who are over 33. And yeah, she was actually dating the guys who were over 30. And no wonder most of them didn't really want to get married. If they wanted to get married, they would have done this, years ago when they were in their 20s. And it's always weird if a guy or a girl or someone didn't have serious relationship. If she just was dating around every single guy, then something might be wrong with her or with this guy. And it's already like a little bit weird. What's wrong? What is wrong with you? Okay. And I'd say Sex and the City is a cultural phenomenon. I loved Samantha. I love Samantha because she was independent. She had her own business in PR. She could slip around with anyone she wanted because she knew that she didn't really want to have any sort of relationship. She had her life under control and she knew what she wanted from life. She could afford luxury products easily because she had money. She had her own company. That's why I really love Samantha, and she wasn't judging people. That I loved the most. And in a lot of, series, when you're watching Sex and the City, Charlotte or someone was like, oh, I feel like I'm a slut. And Samantha was like, if you're a slut, then who am I? And everyone were quiet. They didn't say anything. And when Carrie was cheating with Mr. Big and Aiden, she told Samantha, because she knew Samantha would understand. And she told Samantha about this, let's say, relationship. And she said, judging is not my style. And it's so weird. All of them were judging her for slipping around with as many guys as possible. But Samantha would never judge others. That's why I really love her character. She wasn't pretending. Then let's say about Miranda. Miranda is really cool. She's not crazy with this fashion as Carrie. She wasn't crazy about shoes as much as Carrie. She worked a lot. She could provide for herself. She purchased her own apartment. She had no debt. She had savings, as well as Samantha had savings, and Charlotte, all of them had savings. So they had better financial choices, as well as one of the series where Charlotte and Carrie, they were talking, and Carrie came over why didn't you offer me money? You had a lot of them. And Charlotte said, it's not my problem to solve your financial debts and your financial issues. That's true, because why would they try to resolve the issues of Carrie when she put herself in this position? Sell your shoes, sell your clothes. You don't want to do that. You want your friends to be responsible for your choices. That is another problem with something that is happening right now. A lot of my friends, they try to tell me or probably their parents that it's your responsibility that I'm broke. It's you are lucky, but I'm broke. Or your relationship, you have a great relationship because you are lucky and I'm not. And it's not about the thinking that it's probably you who has an issue with guys and who can't build great relationship. And you should probably consider some therapy, or you should think for yourself, what are you doing wrong? And maybe you're choosing the wrong partners, and I'm not responsible for your choices. Okay? I'm responsible for my choice, for my family, and for my marriage. The same thing about, finances. I am responsible for my finances. And when my cousin is telling me oh, your husband works and you just didn't work or something like this, she would say this, and I don't have this privilege not to work, but it's my choice, the way I can do things. I am developing my social media and getting no money because my husband can support me. It's not my problem that your husband cannot support you in your choices. It's not my problem that you don't want to leave your job to pursue your real dream, your real job dream, let's say, because she is the one who's saying, I don't want to be depending on my husband. I want to be independent. And again, it's just it's your vision of the problem. Same thing happens with and why I really love Miranda and Charlotte. Charlotte has traditional ways of thinking. Yeah, she was slipping around with guys, but she still wanted to get, real family and give birth and, get married, all of it. Sometimes it was a little weird that she was just nonstop searching for a husband, but at least she had her own goals. She worked, she could support her decisions and shoes and whatever. She didn't have these debts, even when she didn't have a husband. And Miranda, I really love her decision when she gave birth to a son, and she was living in the apartment, her 2-bedroom apartment, if I'm not mistaken, Manhattan. She realized that they were lacking the space she needed, and she could sacrifice the space in Manhattan, like the apartment in Manhattan, and to move to Brooklyn because she knew that it was the best interest of her family. Instead of staying in Manhattan and, living in the small apartment, crowded. And Carrie was like, no, I'm not living just because I love my love the way it is. And I don't care that I'm poor, that I have no money, and I'm going to blame every single person around me that I have these issues and these problems. This is something that I don't really like about Carrie. And she's literally pissing me off sometimes, that her choices, like poor choices, let's say, led to the situation that she had in her life. And then she would blame others for these choices. It's weird. Her friends were pretty much great. Then she actually got married to Mr. Big and all of her problems were solved. And it's so interesting when I watched new episodes, and just like that, she started dating Aiden, and she was talking to Miranda about her sex experience with Aiden, and she had the most intense orgasm or something like that. And in this series, she was like, I don't even know. Maybe if I didn't have Mr. Big, I would have been with Aiden, and maybe I couldn't release, I don't know, like myself fully to Aiden because of Big. And now Big is out of the picture, and I can, like devote myself fully to Aiden. It's so cheap. Honestly, like, yeah, he died and he left a lot of money to her. It's given this impression. It's not given the impression like poor widow. It's given the impression that, what? He died, and you feel like this led to an opportunity to feel more or less comfortable with the new lover, like Aiden. And she actually got back to Aiden through all these years when Mr. Big died. Is like being an Aiden, I would have felt so, disgusted. Then only when this guy left this world, I would be, needed. Something like this, if you can see what I'm saying. I don't know, guys. It's so messed up. I mean, I love, again, Sex and the City for a sense of humor, for just watching and discussing with friends. Like, the way of talking, but will I apply this to my real life? No. That's no. I feel like it's okay if you have sex with the random people in a nightclub, if it's safe and consensual, then it's one thing. Just, why not? Safe, consensual, why not? But every single night, every single day, or maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, it's just given the impression this person has no idea what is doing. Is it like your real thing? I mean, in this idea, why I loved Samantha. Samantha, she said straight up, she said, I don't need men. I need them only for sex. That's it. So she wasn't pretending that she was looking someone for like some sort of relationship. No. And Carrie, she was like, oh, I'm looking for my love, but I'm gonna try every single guy. And you remember this from the series when she was dating Aiden and they had no sex for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And she was like, is something wrong? Like, why don't we have sex? And it was like, why should it be wrong? Why is it so bad that you don't have sex during the first date? What about romance? What about like flirting? And she was like, yeah, I completely forgot about it. Because she was sleeping with guys during her first date, maybe second date, and she thought it was fine and okay. And okay, it's fine that none of this relationship would end up as a real marriage. Yeah, because it's built on something more than sex. It's great to have good sex, believe it or not, I understand this. But I feel like sometimes it's something more than just sex. It's just sex and friendship. It's mainly like friendship probably first and then sex. Something like this. It's just my personal opinion. Okay, guys, this is pretty much it for today's podcast. I feel like we covered so many issues and problems that we're facing today. That is the problem with my generation, and especially like people my age, from probably like 25, maybe 24 to 35, I guess this gap. And I feel we have to see Sex in the City as something that you can laugh, talk to your friend, or forget, but do not try to live the same way, because you're going to end up broke. You're going to end up with no marriage. And probably if it's not your goal, that's one thing. But if you're looking for a guy and you're slipping around with every single person, it might be an issue for a guy as well, or a girl. as well. And then I feel like, yeah, you're gonna end up broke with no love probably, and with lots of stuff like luxury products and maybe some expensive designer bags and shoes that that are made poorly with no leather and other products. And just, like, why do you need this with no apartment, with no money, and with no man? To sit and pretend that you need all of it? I don't know. Okay, let me know in the comments, what do you think, guys? Has Sex and the City influenced us in the way that I'm describing, or I'm just exaggerating? I don't know. Love you all, and I'm gonna see you in my next podcast. That's fine with me. Bye bye. Don't forget about mail in the description box. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can always check it out and send me your opinion or maybe story to share, or just like tell me what you think. See you next time.